with us. Thanks for staying with us. You are watching Standpoint. We are moving on now to another conversation. Last weekend, we had the off-cycle election in 3 states, Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa. Now, there have been issues arising from that particular off-cycle election. There were issues, that came up from that election. INEC responded to some of them, but some of them, are issues that politicians are raising and saying, look, they are going to court. Now, what does this, have we made progress in our electoral process? What do some of these issues mean? And so that's the conversation we're having. Let's bring in the convener, Nigeria Economic Forum. He is Brian Reuben. He joins us virtually from the UK. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brian Reuben here. So I am, let me begin by correcting. So one of our programs is called the Nigeria Forum, where I am the executive chairman of the 16th Council that convenes a number of high-level meetings around the world. Just to correct that expression.
Thank you, Dr. Brian. All right, noted. But let's get into the conversation. We've seen a lot of reviews, about this on this particular off-cycle election. Some have said it is a setback in our electoral process. Some have said we have, maintained the same pace as we did in the general election. Some have said we have moved, forward in our electoral process. But I also want to get your assessment, on what happened over the weekend.
Every election will be a reflection of the values and the level of intelligence of the people, of the citizens, really. So after every election, you're going to find those who will say this is the best election so far, whether it was rigged or it was free and fair. And you're going to find those that will say this is a terrible election, all right? So the thing is, Nigeria's democracy is yet evolving, and our institutions are not yet very strong. We have to be fair to ourselves. But my personal opinion on the elections is that, look, the elections have held and winners has been announced, right? And there are people who are going to disagree with the outcome, and they have options, right? They have options to register their disagreements of the elections. And then, but this whole thing is that every election really is a reflection of the values and then understanding of the citizens. So Nigerian elections will generally improve as citizens become more aware of their rights and more aware of their responsibility to demand to demand good governance and to use the ballots as an instrument for making that demand. So if you want to know my assessment of the elections in Imo, in Kogi, and in Bayelsa State, I will say that we haven't seen much of a departure from the previous elections, actually. And I'm making the statement, and I'm being as fair as I can be, really. I'm not a member of any of the political parties, so I think that gives me the chance to actually express myself the way I see it. So we haven't seen much of an improvement. That does not necessarily imply that the electoral empire or the APC or the PDP or the Labour Party or other parties do not have the best interests of Nigerians. So that will be my assessment. There is not much departure. There were, we heard stories about violence. In fact, someone was shot and killed in Bayelsa while trying to snatch a ballot box. In Imo State, we had the governor win 27 of the 27 local governments. There are issues. However, like I said, my hope is that we can improve in the next election cycles.
All right. So the idea of introducing technology to our electoral process was to help with transparency, ease, and also bring ease to the process, whether for the institutions responsible for the election, and also for Nigerians. But when you look at the election cycle, and especially this off-cycle election, how would you say that technology has impacted positively and has made the process easier?
Yeah, I will agree that technology has impacted strongly on Nigeria's democracy. All right, because even when people talk about the IRF, that's a technology. The reason you are now expecting a lot to happen is because of technology. So there's a great impact on Nigeria's democracy as a result of technology. And also, I may not rate Nigeria's election 100 over 100, right? And people are going to disagree with the results, really. I may disagree with the result. But the fact is, democracy has played a very important role. The reason people have evidences, all right, of rigged elections and all of that is because of technology, right? People argue that you didn't upload the results in the IREF, and that's because there is an IREF, right? So there is an improvement. We may not have, and what I think also is that before the whole election started in February last year, there was a lot of expectation. I mean, the INEC chairman was sometime at the Chatham House in the UK, and there was high hopes about how technology can deliver much of a great sort of a transformation in the Nigeria's election. People are somewhat disappointed, but we can't rule out the fact that there's actually been a progress, right? Some people, the election might not have gone as they expected, all right? And the reason why they have evidence about elections not going as they're expected is actually because of the technology introduced. And we have to understand that democracy is a journey, see? Every nation, even in the United States and elsewhere, this whole thing is evolving. My hope, as I said earlier, is that we can get it better next time. But to answer your question, has democracy been a force for good? Yes, it's been a force for good. Has technology delivered a transparent, free, and fair election? People would disagree, right? People can talk about violence, people can talk about not complying to the Electoral Act and all of that. The technology has awakened people's consciousness. It has inspired people, right? Some people voted because of technology, so that's a good thing, right?
So how then do we explain the idea of field election result sheets in Kogi State? Because some have said, look, it takes us back to the pre-technology era where these things used to happen. There were people snatching ballot boxes, thumb printing on the ballot papers and all. So how do we explain that, even with technology?
Now, I'm speaking generally, all right? Kogi State is a specific issues, and there are a lot of other issues, in Imo, in Bayelsa, and again, if you go back to February 25th, there are.
All right, looks like we have lost connection with Dr. Brian Ruben. We're going to take a break to reconnect with him and then continue the conversation. Stay with us. And this is Standpoint. We're having that conversation on the off-cycle, we're reviewing the off-cycle election with Dr. Brian Ruben. We lost connection, but we have him back now. He was speaking, Dr. Ruben, you were speaking as to how do we explain the field election result sheets in Kogi State, even with the introduction of technology in the process?
Yeah, I said that is unfortunate, right? But I did emphasize that technology is a tool, and it takes human beings to use it, right? And the human beings can survive, they can use it to achieve their own means. But I'm speaking generally, that even the fact that we are seeing the fact that the results on the IRF does not match on the result sheet, the reason is because there is an IRF, right? So this election has not perhaps lived up to the expectation of all the people, right? But in terms of whether the technology has been a force for good in Nigeria's election, I would say yes. Whether it has lived up to deliver the expectations Nigerians have, that could be questionable. But it has given an opportunity for people to even be able to have evidence that everything may not have gone right. So to answer the question, yes, technology has been a force for good. The incident in Kogi State, places where there are pockets where there are violence in Bayelsa, in Imo, vote buying in Imo State, those are unfortunate cases. And my hope is that we can review all of that and then take lessons from that to strengthen democracy in Nigeria.
And you also said something that was quite key. You said that it has been a force for good, but whether it has helped, or improved the transparency and accountability of the process is a whole another issue. And that's what I really want to touch on, because there are politicians and CSOs and election observers who are saying there are units where elections did not hold, but those results were uploaded to the IRF from those polling units. And one wonders, how, INEC will explain that. But I also want to ask you about strengthening the transparency of the process. What then should be done to ensure that the process is transparent?
All right, so here will be my response to that. Really, technology is a piece, all right? Is a tool. And those situations are very unfortunate. And at this moment, the allegations actually, and we will hope that those who allege those cases will be able to bring evidence to prove that those things happen. And my hope is that now this goes to the courts in Nigeria. And my hope is that the courts will live up to their expectation and ensure that justice is not only done, but is seen to have been done. On the side of INEC, it will be my hope that INEC will be able to hold elections in such a way that people will not, that they are not only transparent, they are not only independent, but they are truly seen to be independent. See, now these are decisions that every stakeholder in Nigeria, whether it is the INEC, whether it is CSO, whether it is the presidency, will have to make about Nigeria. That Nigeria is somehow going to work, and it cannot work except people commit to making it work. And we should be able to exalt the prospect.
All right, looks like once again we have lost connection with Dr. Brian Ruben, but he has made really he has made really interesting points in this conversation. We do have to leave it there anyway. He's talked about how, he was just talking about how to strengthen the transparency of the process, and that INEC must be seen to be really independent and transparent. But we will leave it there. Thanks for watching. I am Precious Amayo.